So I'm Mark Shepard, been a long time contributor and Acres USA reader. Actually, probably ever since I was 10 years old or so, and I'm no longer 10. We're at New Forest Farm in southwest Wisconsin. We do agroforestry, permaculture, mixed integrated system, everything from annual grains to long-term crops like sugar maples that we actually planted. This was all corn and beans 25 years ago. One of the reasons why I got into this kind of agriculture is my uncles were dairy farmers. And so to me, to be tied to a farm for 367 days out of the year was not an option. And so growing trees was part of it. I can grow trees, and in the wintertime like this, there's not a lot going on. Well, in most orchard systems where the university and the PhDs will tell you to grow in an orchard type system, there's going to be pruning, you're going to have to dispose of extra branches. There are things that you do in the off season, but we mimic natural ecosystems more than we do orchards. So there's a lot of things that the university tells you that you have to do that we don't do. And so right out here right now I'm farming. Underneath my feet, this is the alley between rows of trees. In the alley, there's a winter cover crop. It's winter rye. It's the second season. What I do when I'm going through my rotation after a produce crop or whatever a cash crop is that comes off of it, I put it into winter rye, and then the following spring I top seed with a clover mix and hairy vetch. And then when the rye is full size and has the grains on the head, if I need the feed, I'll have it combined or I'll have it baled. But most often, or sometimes I'll hog it down with cattle or hogs. But most often I've been rolling it, mash it down, and just let it decay. Makes a nice little mulch mat. Well, then all the clovers come through that. And so then the clovers grow, they're putting the nitrogen in the ground. I let the clovers go to seed, and then I go mash that. So then the second season, you'll have a decent stand of rye. It's usually not as good as the first one. Sometimes it has been. And then I let that go through. So this was the second season of rye, and this big, strong clover component underneath that. That seems to persist really well. But the rye peters out. And I don't know what I'm going to do next year in the alley. So I got my cover crop in this alley right now. And then on either side, this is primarily chestnuts. There's other things in there as well. There's mulberries and grapes. And then on either side of us, there are alleys of asparagus that will be harvested first thing in the spring. So this is my wintertime management. I go for a walk and I see what needs to be done. I got broken branches, I'll get rid of them. There was a lot of wind this fall, so I have a lot of branches I need to remove. Then when the chestnuts start coming out into the alley so far that they try to push me off the tractor, then I'll go through and I'll lop them off with the chainsaw. The larger diameter material on chestnut I'll inoculate with shiitake mushrooms, and then the branches and the leaves I'll just chip with the flail chopper as I go by. And that's basically my wintertime management. My approach on like the whole solar and solar farms thing is, if you have 80 acres of solar panels, great, this is renewable energy. I'm all for renewable energy. But why don't we have renewable energy on a use-by-use basis, and each use generates a surplus? This is a grid-connected system. It sends surplus electricity out to the grid, so it's a net positive. We produce more energy than we use here. If we did that at every single farm and every single single-family residence, we're making a net positive contribution to the grid, and we're not covering everything, especially farmland, with black solar panels. One of the things I think that would be the best use for massive solar farms are parking lots. Anywhere you park any kind of cars, what if we had solar panels all across a parking lot at Walmart? Now you get in the summertime, you park your car in the shade. You can leave your dog in the car and not kill your dog. You go shopping, you come back out. Well, when you were in there, the cloud came over, now it's raining like crazy, and you can walk out and you stay dry. And so I think that there are far better places to put, you know, highly concentrated solar electric facilities other than farmland. Yeah, we can graze sheep underneath, and yes, we can grow shade tolerant vegetables, peas and beets and stuff like that, but it's still, that's in a place where we could have a full complete ecosystem like this with trees that are 100-foot tall and shrubs and bushes and vines and grazing and renewable energy. We're producing more energy than we're using right here, and it's not covered black with solar panels. So that's more of my approach on it, is let's put it in more horrible places like parking lots, for example. You were to read Biological Farmer by Gary Zimmer and do what he says, your farming will improve, period, you know, unequivocally. So basically with Gary Zimmer's book, it was a lot more, you know, just really simple. It's like, come on, first of all, take a soil sample. What do I actually have going on here? Let's balance those minerals. Once you get those minerals balanced, it wakes up your soil life. Well, okay, if we want, we can go stimulate that, add more soil life to it and all that, but let's just balance our minerals. Everything wakes up and our fertility is at a new level. Now let's focus on our biological processes, our active growth processes, our active decomposition processes. Well, now let's get our animals in balance. Once we have the minerals, the plants, and the animals in balance, we've got a full, complete terrestrial ecosystem that's just humming. And your farming will be dramatically improved. Now, once you have those three in line, now we can tweak with, let's try some of this, let's try some of that. Now we can experiment because we have good fertility, we're gonna have good yields, we'll have decent profits on the farm. Now we can afford to experiment with some other stuff that maybe by itself wouldn't work well. With that foundation of our minerals, our plant biology, and our animal biology, everything works. So yeah, Biological Farmer, Gary Zimmer. The 1-hour speech presentation was basically on runoff management. No matter where you live, whether it's Saudi Arabia or tropical rainforest, there's a certain amount of precipitation that falls from the sky or precipitates out of the sky. And that is your water income for the year. Well, when water comes to a place, let's take Arizona for example, you see all these steep canyon things and arroyos. These were caused by water erosion. How can you get water erosion when it only rains 3 inches a year? Well, when it rains all at once, and the soil is not prepared and the vegetation doesn't hold it, and so it all runs off. So my 1-hour presentation is no matter where you live, there are ways that we can capture the site precipitation and manage our runoff. So we spread the water out, we soak it in, we store it in ponds, we store it in tanks, we move it where we want to move it to in order to either passively pulse irrigate. This whole system here is set up so when it rains, it pulse irrigates and it spreads the water from high in the valleys to a little bit lower on the ridges every single time. Other places you may want to focus it, especially more arid areas, focus it on a pond, and then you use that for flood irrigation 2 or 3 times a year. So my 1-hour presentation was all about water management, plus my 2 books, Water for Any Farm and the Water for Any Farm Field Engineering Manual, tell you how to design a system on your property, no matter where you are, no matter what the slope is. No such thing as a flat piece of ground. Every piece of ground has a slight slope, and we can use that to move water, store it for additional productivity.